The new DC universe under James Gunn has officially begun. The season finale for Creature Commandos arrived the other night, and I found some time to binge the entire 7-episode season. What came from my experience watching this show were some highs, but then some lows. But what I found to be the most important aspect about this show is that the highs really stood out to me as the reason for why I believe that Creature Commandos was the best way to start the new DC universe. In this video, I'm going to analyze why that is the case and how it could shape the future of said universe under James Gunn. For everyone watching this video, do you believe that Creature Commandos was the best way to start the universe, or are you still looking forward to Superman as being the first legit project that will get people excited for what's in store? Let me know in the comments. Creature Commandos was written by James Gunn and is about a team of supernatural and monster-like characters within the DC comic lore. The series focuses on what is known as a Black Ops team or Suicide Squad-like version of these monsters and creatures that is assembled by the character Amanda Waller. They are tasked under General Rick Flag Sr. to go into the nation of Bakalova to protect the princess Yelena Rostovic from an Amazonian sorceress named Circe and her forces. When it comes to the premise, it's as simple as it gets when you think of a story that you've probably heard a dozen times before, but with the twist on the fact that the team you follow for the mission are not actually good guys and are mainly known for being monsters. Although, that premise is not as simple as my reaction to the show, which is very mixed. I thought the show had some highs and also some lows, which ultimately led to me thinking that the show was just decent at best. I didn't think it was great like a lot of people thought it was, which is totally fine, but for me, I thought it could have been better. It is tonally all over the place, and I could never quite get a fix on when the show wanted to be taken seriously and when it wanted me to laugh at jokes and humor. There are times when humor and jokes land, and I'm laughing hysterically, and there are other times where it hits the ground with a thud and my expression is confused. The humor is definitely in line with what James Gunn likes to do in adapting characters like this, especially for characters that no one has ever heard of or doesn't know that well. I thought the characters were all decent and well voice acted with the exception of a few. While the animation looks good with the colors and its style, I did feel at times that the animation movement was janky and hard to get into. Sometimes the story felt a little rushed for having the runtime that each episode had, where scenes would transition weirdly out of a big plot point into a much lesser plot point, and you lose the weight of what had just happened. I even felt I couldn't get much into the music, which certainly has a theme to it based on the plot, and again, tonally, I just don't know if that music fit, as it sometimes made it feel a little too silly. However, with all that being said, the main reason why we are here today for me to make this video for the show is to understand why I believe it is the best start for DC and its universe. That big and important reason comes down to one fundamental aspect of storytelling and filmmaking that James Gunn understands the importance of, which is building and developing your characters. When it comes to comic book stories that have been adapted to film, James Gunn probably knows this better than most other filmmakers who have tackled this genre. Guardians of the Galaxy and that trilogy of films is proof enough that he knows how to build up people's expectations and emotions for characters that we would all want to follow for multiple different stories. Gunn has an ability to his mindset of writing characters where he makes them feel authentic, relatable, but then also multi-dimensional, especially if you are able to follow a character who is more in the gray and doesn't have a side to take. Creature Commandos and Suicide Squad follow more villain and anti-hero-like characters, but the aspect of both those projects that James Gunn worked on that is present throughout is how he makes those characters ones to root for, regardless of the fact that they are not always going to be good guys. One of Gunn's biggest strengths is that he has an ability to develop characters and ground them down to feel deeply human, no matter how outlandish or fantastical their personalities and circumstances are. He also excels at making them flawed and imperfect. This can help make a character feel more real and relatable, as there are always times where a character is going to need to find personal growth in themselves, just like we as people do every day. Creature Commandos finds itself in a unique position with that kind of thing, where each episode is essentially just a backstory episode of each of the commandos in the team. You get to learn more more about them and how they ended up where they were, which is in prison under the control and watch of Amanda Waller. This aspect of storytelling through the television format and the constraint of making a less than 25 and sometimes 20-minute episode allows for James to just do what he wants, and in this case, it means giving just enough time for all these characters to give us a reason to want to root for them or relate to their stories. That is undeniably the best part of the show, which is that it showed me where James Gunn's focus was at, which was on building character. You don't have a television show or a movie unless your first goal is to develop characters. Obviously, each format of media offers its challenges with how you go about doing it, but as long as your primary focus is on that, then you are doing it right, no matter what. Characters drive the story does not drive the characters. Yes, there are always going to be a conflict, but that conflict does not come about unless the characters deem it so. I'd be lying if I didn't say that the main plot line in the show around the country of Pokolistan was arguably the least important thing and the least developed aspect. But what made me want to watch that storyline was because it involved the characters that I wanted to follow and that were being developed through each of the 7 episodes. Now, some of you will probably scoff at this next aspect of my analysis, but when you hear me out, you'll understand why it's important. James Gunn doing this show first is very important for how it impacts the Superman film. I just laid out a very big reason for why that was the case when I discussed James's ability to develop characters, but there is even a much more finer detail within that relates to the character of Superman. One of the storylines in Creature Commandos that I have read online hit the hardest for people is the one around the character of Weasel. Weasel is a character that on paper you might think should never work, but when you have James Gunn adapting him, it only gets better. A character that everyone assumed was the worst of the worst given the crime they were accused of committing, which was killing children. You come to find that that was all a complete misunderstanding, and he actually never killed anyone. The storyline of him playing with the children at the schoolyard only for him to have to try and save them after a fire broke out inside is heartbreaking. He never wanted to hurt the kids, he only wanted to be kind to them and play with them, and he suffered incorrect consequences of what people had thought he did. Shout out to Sean Gunn, the brother of James Gunn, for voice acting the hell out of this, because I really felt the pain in the character through his voice. There are many things that can make someone like me get emotional when experiencing storytelling, one of which is when I can see a more nicer and more harmless kind of character be misunderstood and treated terribly, and then suffer consequences that they didn't deserve. The other is when I see animals get treated inhumanely with cruelty, and then again also suffer consequences because of it, whether they are hurt real bad physically or are killed. I'm a big animal guy and a dog guy, and so that stuff just really hits me hard. James Gunn really did pull at my heartstrings when he did the backstory of Weasel in the show, and you're probably asking, how does this have anything to do with Superman? The answer to that question is because I believe that Superman might be one of the most misunderstood comic characters ever, which is weird to say because he's arguably the biggest in name. A character that is basically immune to anything and can't be harmed unless through certain methods. And so when some people see that, it lessens their approach to caring for the character if they feel Superman is so perfect in every way where he can't have anything bad done to him. But fundamentally, he's most misunderstood because people too often focus on those superpowers that make him seem perfect on the outside, but not on the inside. On the inside is something much more emotional, moral, and also psychological, and is complex with what makes him one of the most deeply human superheroes, despite his alien nature of where he comes from. With James Gunn being the one who is writing him and making the first movie around that character, I don't know if you could have picked a more perfect person to do it. I think Creature Commandos, above all else, regardless of what you think of the quality of the show, is able to show that Gunn has his head in the right place with how he goes about adapting characters, but also the types of characters that he knows how to develop. There is relatability and empathy to that, themes of acceptance and intolerance, especially when you consider that as we see in the trailer for Superman, people are not ready to tolerate him or accept him yet. It is a hero's journey through and through, where he's got to show to the rest of humanity that he is what they need. He is probably the fundamental misunderstood character of all comic book characters. It serves as a metaphor for all those who have been marginalized or overlooked, and their stories evoke a powerful and emotional response that celebrates their quest for acceptance. James Gunn above all else, probably knows that more than anyone, and is the reason for why I think he is the right person for Superman, and the reason for why Creature Commandos is the best way to have started the DCU. I cannot wait for Superman. It's one of my top 3 most anticipated movies of next year, and it could not be in better hands right now. But there you have it. That's my commentary on Creature Commandos. I don't really have much more to say about the show other than that, given that that was the most important thing that I wanted to talk about. But what do you all think of the show and my commentary on it? Leave your comments down below and let's have a nice and respectful conversation about it. I cannot ask enough that you please do be respectful, as I do read all my comments to the best of my ability. Thank you for stopping by my channel. If you do want to see more moving forward from me with regards to film and television, and you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe if you are new here, and turn on that notification bell. I'm trying to build a community on here, and your support would be greatly appreciated. That's a wrap, folks. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you all soon for the next video.